Somebody has finally asked the right question. What's with St. Louis?
Exactly. What is it with
Valerie
us?
Kienzle, thank you for asking that question.
Valerie has written the book. I'm just going to hold it up. What's with St. Louis?
The quirks... your finger's over the title.
Sorry.
The quirks, personalities, and charm of the gateway city.
Yes. This is not your first book, right?
No, this is my third book. I have one on St. Charles, Missouri, and one on Columbia, Missouri.
So, okay, this is a great idea. Was this your idea, or did they come to you and say, do it?
Oh, no. Came to dream, right?
Josh Stevens, who is the publisher at Reedy Press, he came up with this idea. He said, get a list of things you've always wondered, things that have puzzled you and befuddled you about St. Louis. I will get together a list. We'll put our list together and see what we come up with. Yeah. 8 months later, we have this book.
Right, and you ask all the right questions, Valerie. Like, why are there so many one-way streets in St. Louis? Why?
Really? When I become mayor, I just want to say, when I'm mayor, that's out. That goes.
Well, it has to do with the development and traffic flow was the best I could understand.
In downtown St. Louis.
In downtown.
They were narrow streets.
Yes.
Well, that's always the case. But, if you look at South St. Louis area, it's like a wagon wheel. And that really makes people crazy. It's not laid out in a grid like,
Yeah, but see, that's what's cool about this book is that you just start talking about this stuff.
St. Louis is a city of neighborhoods. Is that like a lot of cities, or is that weird?
Well, you came from Nashville. Do you have neighborhoods like that in Nashville?
Not so much, no. And that's something I really enjoy and appreciate about St. Louis. It seems like as the different immigrant populations came and settled here, they settled in certain areas according to where the jobs were and where they could, best find.
That makes sense.
That's
a place that was like home. Yes.
That's how we got the hill.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Tell us that story. It's in your book.
There's real diversity. Okay. Well, it started. It was a little bit of an incline up. The workers came. There was a clay called Cheltenham. And
clay?
Clay, yes.
Yeah.
And that's what they
bricks
used to make bricks.
Uh-huh.
And that was how it really started, that a lot of the immigrants, the Italian immigrants, started making the bricks.
How about that?
And if you look around St. Louis, we're still a very brick-oriented city.
We
Yes,
are. And that's so nice, actually, because it has such a sense of permanence.
Yes.
We pronounce the Italian street names correctly, but we do not pronounce the French street names.
And
no, we do
so
not.
Many
Why is
of
that?
them.
Well, don't have a sure answer on that one, so I'd leave it up to the readers or whoever. Some people say it's because we had such a mix here in St. Louis of nationalities, and called a local vernacular, that the words, the original French pronunciations got butchered.
But how do we even know what? I mean, I went my whole life saying Chatillon instead of Châtillon de Manille, because I just thought that's what it was. But you see, Gravois, what was it supposed to be?
Gravois.
Oh, really? Okay.
French.
Sense,
okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
but if you have,
I mean, it's like Target.
Yeah, right. But if you have Italian and you have Irish and you have German pronouncing these French names, you can see how that would slowly change like that. Now, this is the big one, I think. Hoosiers. Why do we have Hoosiers in St. Louis when we're 2 states away?
Good question, and there's not a real definitive answer for that either. But I know I didn't know what that meant. I lived here for a number of years, and I kept hearing people say, "Oh, that's such a Hoosier. That's such a Hoosier activity."
Yes.
And it finally hit me. A coworker said that her mother lived in South St. Louis and kept the Christmas tree up in a corner of the living room the entire year. When the holidays were over, she simply threw a sheet over the tree. When the holidays rolled back again, there was the tree. All she had to do was plug it in. It was decorated, lit. There you go.
Okay.
And so it hit me. That is a Hoosier. Yeah. That's a Hoosier. Or like a woman who goes to the grocery. She puts on a nice outfit. She puts on a dab of makeup and lipstick, but her hair's in curlers. But she's got a colorful scarf that matches her outfit to cover it. Okay. That's a Hoosier. Right. Or somebody that has flower pots down in
just
the
even
city.
having curlers anymore.
Yes.
Who has them?
They use beer cans for curlers.
Actually, those large curlers are coming back.
Really? Oh my goodness, orange juice cans.
Right.
But it's interesting that we use that term Hoosier as opposed to hick or some other word that somehow, and it was often associated with South St. Louis more than other parts of St. Louis for whatever reason.
For whatever reason.
And this is cool about it. I mean, you point out a lot of these things like that, but they are mysteries in some way. Now, some of them are like the bathhouses. We still have some bathhouses or buildings that say bathhouse on them.
Yeah, what was the deal with that? Because that sounds very unsanitary.
Well, actually, St. Louis, from my research, I found that St. Louis was a very stinky, smelly place. And having, it was the fourth largest city, and lots of people that came from other parts of the world didn't necessarily have the same ideas about personal hygiene.
Standards of hygiene.
Yes. And most of the houses in the city did not have running water, which meant that if they were going to take a bath, it might have been once a week, and they had to heat the water in a tub.
And they also had to the whole family took it in bath water.
Yes.
And didn't they do it like the older people first and the baby last?
Yes.
Wouldn't that be just the opposite? The baby's the cleanest.
It doesn't sound very sanitary.
Exactly.
The baby was the only one.
No wonder those babies didn't survive.
So there were 6 bathhouses in St. Louis, and
how many still stand?
2.
One's in the Central West End.
Yes.
What are they now? Are they just buildings housing other
empty
things?
Right,
yes. And you could go and you could take your own soap and your own towel and use it for free, or you could, for a nickel, get a towel and borrow some soap.
How about that?
And
do you think that was any more sanitary than your whole family in one tub?
Who knows? They did have separate for males and females, and from what I gathered, they become quite the social gathering point. Yeah, the neighbors would come there to talk after they had their bath.
This must have been a lot of fun to research this.
It was. I spent a lot of time with my nose in libraries and musty books and reading things online and talking to people.
What didn't make the book that you would put in the next book, that you just didn't find what you were looking for?
I don't know that I'd put it in the book. It was maybe some people might consider it a little off color, that there was this well-known madam, late 19th, early 20th century, and she wanted to buy a plot in Bell Fountain Cemetery. And so she approached the directors, and she was told, no, you may not.
Because she was a woman of ill repute?
Yes. And she said, well, okay, that's fine, but I'm going to talk to each of your wives individually and let them know how I know you. Well, guess what? She got to buy the plot. Yes. And she is buried there, and she has nobody around her.
How about that?
She's just by herself.
That's a book of its own.
Yeah.
There's a story there.
But anyway, and she was very wealthy. She was very successful. The newspapers said that of her funeral, there were 1,000 people lining the street between downtown where the service was held and where she was buried at Bell Fountain.
The book is called What's with St. Louis? That's the short title. Where can we find it?
You can find it at Novel Neighbors, Subterranean Books, The Book House, the chain stores.
Is it in the History Museum?
Yes, it is in the History Museum.
Yeah, that's where I go for all my St. Louis books.
Yeah, we like to support local.
Yeah, good.
Very good.
Yeah.
Valerie Kienzle, thank you. Thanks for writing it.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Keep writing.
All right.
Thanks to Abusi Michelli Insurance. They continuously work to provide the individual coverage you require, and they made our segment possible today through their generosity. They also handle commercial life and health insurance. You can contact Tina Michelli at 314-832-6667.